At the beginning of the film, a man is climbing up the rocks in the hot sun. Leo recalls that there is an ancient Greek myth that tells of a guy who flew too high. Icarus knew what would happen if he climbed up to the sun, yet he did it anyway. After saying this, Leo flies down the cliffs. A funeral is being organized in the city, which Penelope attends. The procession is filmed from afar by George Mensah. Meanwhile, the main character wakes up in the plane and also reflects on the ancient Greek myth. Nick recalls that he was born on the island of Crete. Leo's family, considered quite rich and wealthy by the standards of the island. The boy lands on the island of Crete and picks up a note. Its author asks Nick to look for a brown vintage car near the airport. He meets Penelope, who invited him to investigate her case. The girl is married, but is worried about what happened to Leo. She believes that he was deliberately killed. However, the family of the guy is very rich and influential. She bought the police and doesn't want to investigate the case. Penelope tells that she met Leo before she got married. Nick doesn't fully understand the details of the case, but agrees to take it on. He goes after Penelope and feels a bit like her accomplice. The girl doesn't want Leo's family and her husband Elias, Leo's twin brother, to find out about her investigation. Therefore, Penelope decides to settle the detective in a convent, which doesn't particularly please him. Before going to bed, Nick drinks, not wanting to remember his wife and young daughter. Waking up, he goes to the city and goes to the forensic building. After paying the man sitting there, Nick decides to look into Leo's case. He is alarmed by the fact that the boy's fingers were broken and that he decided to go rock climbing without equipment. Nick learns that Leo's case is being handled by Detective George Mensah and goes to see him. Mensah says that the fall was just an accident and the case is closed. Nick asks why then George went to the funeral with a camera. The man refuses to cooperate and repeats that the case is closed. Nick learns that Leo's family owns a large yacht. He goes to the marina and realizes that the gods are on his side. Your yacht has drifted out to sea, but is nearby and can be seen through a paid telescope. Nick observes Elias, who looks rather guilty. The guy wanders around the yacht and approaches Penelope. However, she turns away from him. Elias leaves the yacht and gets into a car. Following him, Nick arrives at the rock climbing site. Despite the recent tragedy with Leo, the guy climbs the rock without a rope or a protection. Afterwards, Nick catches the guy and pretends to be a British Greek agent. Nick has coffee with Elias and asks him about his brother. Their conversation is overheard by George. Elias tells him that he saw his brother 3 weeks before the tragedy. Then they had a drink and had a quarrel. The guy regrets that he couldn't save Leo. At the same moment, Elias gets a message from someone that Nick is not an intelligence agent. The guy politely says he has to go on an errand. Nick goes to the car where the detective is sitting. Nick manages to negotiate with George to cooperate, and together they arrive at the police office. Analyzing the recording of the conversation, he notices that Elias was visibly nervous and tried to change the subject. Nick also finds it suspicious that the guy immediately shut down when he was asked a question about Penelope and her interaction with Leo. Nick returns to the convent and sees his customer. Penelope reveals that she met Leo at Oxford. She was very busy and was grafting at work and trying for a scholarship. However, that didn't stop Leo, and he tried to connect with her. When Nick asks about meeting Elias, the girl changes the subject and is about to leave. Penelope mentions a mistake she made and failed to correct it. Left alone, Nick recalls the first time he was set on by intense jealousy, which later destroyed his marriage. However, in his work it almost always helps, because he sees in the suspects the same feelings that he once felt himself. Digging into other people's pain, Nick tries to heal his own. The next day, he visits Leo's flat with the help of his client. Nick realizes that the guy had feelings for Penelope. Nick also learns that Leo had a close friend. Nick talks to Victoria and learns a lot of new things. Audrey's mother is the head of the family. She has removed Leo from the business because of his creative nature. Elias, in Victoria's opinion, is a bad man who treats people terribly. Nick suggests that Leo might have had dirt on his brother that would hurt the company, and that's what caused the quarrel. Also, Victoria tells him that Leo has been climbing this rock since he was a kid and has never once fallen. In the afternoon, Nick goes to the rock with Penelope. The girl tells that one day, Elias wrote her a message. However, he did it from Leo's phone and then deleted the messages. Elias knew that his brother liked the girl. However, he made love to her anyway. Soon, Penelope started dating him, even though she knew it was breaking Leo's heart. Nick asks the girl to arrange for him a meeting with Audrey. He is convinced that she in protecting Elias, may have hurt her other son. Penelope is about to put Nick on the guest list for an elite party to be held on a yacht tonight. Nick sneaks over there and starts talking to Audrey. He is noticed by Elias, who acts quite aggressively. The guy almost attacks Nick and demands that he stay away from his mother. Elias also tells the detective to go back to New York to his wife and kids that he left. After the incident, Nick is drinking at a bar. George asks him to forget about the case and leave. However, Nick is determined to expose Elias, as he gets away with it too easily. He also recalls how he found out about his wife's infidelity and tried to save the marriage. In the morning, Nick decides to visit Victoria at the bar, but sees that the place is closed. He follows Elias and goes after him to another bar. George is also heading after them. Elias's men attack the guy and beat him up. George helps Nick and brings him to the monastery. There, he remembers how he decided to search his wife's phone and find out the contact of her lover. The next day, Nick sees the customer. Penelope tells him that she wants to leave her husband but can't. Elias swears that he loves her and will change, but he changes just enough for her to believe him. Nick lays the bargaining chip on the table. He says that he found a hair rubber band in Leo's flat, the same one Penelope uses. The girl confirms her affair with the guy and says she hid it because she couldn't trust Nick before. He assumes that who dumped Leo got to the rocks by boat. Together with George, Nick researches the necessary information and finds something suspicious. On the day of the tragedy with Leo, the boat BL-42 was out to sea. However, it has not had any catch for about a year, and its owner is long dead. Nick goes to the harbor to question the fishermen. He learns from George that at night Janice, Elias's mate, is going to ferry some boat to Africa. At night, the men are on duty near the docks. There they see the boat that Janice has brought. While Nick discreetly tries to find identifying marks, George keeps watch outside. However, the light from Nick's torch is noticed by Janice's assistant. He and George get into a confrontation. Nick sees that it is indeed a BL-42 boat and climbs down. After taking the weapon from the unconscious George, the guy starts to make a run for the exit, knowing that the wounded Janice is waiting for him. Nick handles his weapon carefully and shoots accurately. His enemy falls into the water. Nick approaches the now dead George with his dog sitting beside him. In the morning, Nick returns to the monastery, feeling bitter guilt over what has happened. He cries and wants to drink, but breaks the glass against the wall. Nick again goes to the place of the tragedy, and suddenly he has an epiphany. Upon returning home, he checks Elias's shipping company website and yells that he finally caught him. Nick calls Penelope and asks her not to let her husband out of the house as he will be arriving soon. The girl is perplexed. However, Nick asks to trust him as he has found proof. Nick asks her to let all the guards go and open the door for him in 5 minutes. Nick also recalls how he found out the address of his wife's lover and decided to visit him. Penelope follows Nick's instructions and opens the door for him and invites Audrey to the terrace. The girl does not know that her mother-in-law has brought a gun with her. Nick talks to the guy and tells everyone the shocking truth. In fact, in front of them is Leo. The guy killed Elias on purpose, as he was mad at him. It turns out that Leo never forgave his brother for stealing Penelope from him. The guy stepped on Elias's fingers just before the top, which is why they were broken. Leo then took the ring from his brother and proceeded to pretend to be Elias in front of his mother, wife, and Janice. His performance didn't arouse anyone's suspicion. Upon learning of this, Audrey attacks her son. Nick has no time to stop her, and a crying Penelope cannot utter a word. Soon the house is flooded with police. Nick returns to the convent and is about to leave, realizing that he has solved the case. Nick boards the plane and refuses the champagne. He reflects on his dialogues with Penelope and suddenly jumps up from his seat. Nick runs out of the plane and catches a taxi. Seeing Nick on her yacht, Penelope is a little lost and asks what he's doing here. Nick recalls that when they met, the girl said that he was recommended to her by Sally. However, she and the character didn't get along, and the one clearly made him look bad. Nevertheless, Penelope hired him as he could be led around by the nose. Nick says he guessed everything. Penelope was the one who plotted to kill Elias. The girl admits everything, but says that Leo decided to pretend to be Elias himself. If with her husband Penelope was hard, but they loved each other, then she was just afraid of Leo. He said that he had already lost her once, but he wouldn't do it again. Penelope hired Nick to save herself and gain her freedom. Nick doesn't surrender the girl to the police and leaves, intending to return to his family and make things right. This is the end of the film. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this film, and see you in new videos.